Stop trying to be perfect. It's a cage you build with your own hands, and the key is rusting from disuse. We live in a world obsessed with flawless images. A perfect skin routine, a perfectly structured sentence, a life that looks like a highlight reel. And in this chase, we slowly trade our authenticity for a carefully constructed mask. We post the smiling photos, but our hearts feel heavy. We speak, but our words are calculated. We strive, but deep down, we feel like an imposter. The simple, uncomfortable truth is this: perfection isn't real. It's a ghost we chase. The problem is, we refuse to accept this. We fight against our own humanity. We conceal our flaws. We bury our struggles. We hide who we truly are. And this internal war is where the real suffering begins. Because the moment you choose a flawless mask over your real face, you begin to disappear. Today, I want to share a journey with you. It's not a fairy tale with a simple happy ending. It's not a list of 5 easy steps. It's a raw, honest account. A story of someone trapped by the fear of being seen as ordinary, who nearly lost himself in the process. And if you listen closely, you'll find a reflection of your own struggles within it. Chapter 1: The Prisoner of the Mirror. His name was Leo. He was 24, living in a modest apartment in a city that never slept. His space was sparse: a bed, a desk, a chair, and one large mirror hanging on the wall. Each morning, as his alarm sounded, Leo's ritual began. He would stand before that mirror, but he never saw his own eyes. He saw a list of defects. My jaw isn't sharp enough. My posture is weak. My vocabulary is limited. My anxiety is obvious. Day after day, his first waking moments were an act of self-criticism. Then came the clothes. He would pull out shirt after shirt, not to express himself, but to build a shield. What if this color is too loud? What if this fit makes me look strange? He was preparing for a battle he assumed he would lose. When he stepped onto the street, he walked with a rehearsed gait. He laughed with a measured volume. He spoke with a quiet, filtered voice. Inside his head, a constant whisper looped: don't slip up. Don't draw attention. Don't be you. Leo wasn't lazy. He worked hard. He watched language tutorials. He studied communication techniques alone in his room. But the moment he faced a real person, the practice evaporated. One afternoon at his office, his supervisor asked, "Leo, could you walk us through the summary of this project in the meeting?" Leo knew the data inside and out. He'd rehearsed the explanation the night before. But as he stood up, a familiar wave crashed over him. His mind went blank, a white sheet of paper. His pulse hammered in his ears. His fingers went cold. He opened his mouth, but the words were stuck in his throat. The room felt silent, though he knew people were just waiting. In his mind, however, their stares were daggers. His manager, seeing his distress, simply said, "We can come back to it. Sit down." That moment was a fracture. That night, Leo couldn't eat. He sat in the dark, phone in hand, but not looking at it. He replayed the scene on an endless loop. Why couldn't I speak? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be like everyone else? The thoughts grew heavier, darker. I am inadequate. I am a failure. I am not worth listening to. And then the most destructive thought of all arrived, soft and poisonous. Maybe this is just who I am. Maybe I'll always be this way. That single sentence can destroy a person's future. Leo believed his problem was his English, his social anxiety, his lack of charisma. But the root cause was deeper. He believed he had to be flawless before he could participate. He was trapped by a condition. I will speak when my sentences are perfect. I will try when my fear is gone. I will live when I am finally ready. But life doesn't operate on a ready button. You don't achieve perfection and then begin living. You begin, stumble, and through that process, you get better. So every day, Leo was waiting for a version of himself that was a fantasy. And as he waited, his real life was slipping away. One evening, Leo stood before the mirror once more. He stared, his eyes hollow. He was about to launch into his usual self-flagellation when something inside him snapped. He slammed his fist against the glass. Crack! A jagged line split his reflection. Leo staggered back, breathing hard. He looked again. Now his face was fractured, a mosaic of fear, anger, and exhaustion. And in that broken image he saw the truth he'd been avoiding. He whispered, his voice raw, "I am so tired of pretending to be someone I'm not." That night, Leo didn't know it, but he had just cracked the door to his own prison open. Chapter 2c. The night the illusion shattered. That night, Leo didn't cover the mirror. He didn't turn away. He sat on the floor, staring at the fractured glass. It was a small crack, but it had fundamentally changed his perspective. Before, when he looked in the mirror, he saw a unified target for his hatred. A single, clear image to judge. Now, his reflection was fragmented. One shard showed a man who looked furious. Another showed a man who looked exhausted. Another, a man who was terrified. And for the first time, Leo allowed himself to just see, without running. The room was still, no scrolling, no videos, no distractions. Just Leo and the truth. Normally, when discomfort arose, he would escape into his phone, drowning his thoughts in noise. But tonight, a quiet voice held him in place. Stay. Look, minutes turned into an hour, and the thoughts he'd been suppressing for years began to surface. Not surface-level thoughts, but the heavy, foundational ones. Why am I always so afraid? Why does the opinion of a stranger hold so much power over me? Why do I feel so small in a crowded room? He had no answers, only the raw questions. Then, a memory surfaced. He was 11 years old. He was in class, asked to read a passage aloud. He mispronounced a word, a simple error. A few kids chuckled. Not cruelly, just a brief reaction. That day he forced a smile, pretending it didn't bother him. But something inside him had sealed shut. It was the first time he felt the shame of being less than. And from that day forward, he began the slow process of shrinking himself. That night, Leo realized something profound. He wasn't afraid of making a mistake. He was afraid of the feeling of embarrassment. And to avoid that feeling, he had built a fortress of avoidance. Only act when you can guarantee success. It sounds like safety, but it's a trap. Because when you only act when success is assured, you never act at all. Leo stood, walking closer to the mirror. He traced the crack with his fingertip. A new thought formed. The mirror is broken, but I can still see myself. He paused, letting the idea land. Another thought followed, heavier with meaning. My voice is imperfect, but I can still speak. His breath steadied. A third thought arrived, carrying a spark. My confidence is cracked, but I can still try. This wasn't a euphoric moment. It wasn't a movie scene. It was real. For the first time, Leo didn't feel the urge to fix himself. He felt a strange, new sensation: acceptance. We think the hardest thing in life is to improve. But the truly difficult work is this: looking at your raw, flawed self without contempt. You don't become perfect and then start. You start, and then you become better. Leo tried it. He looked into the broken mirror, and, instead of listing his faults, he said something honest, something quiet. I am a mess, but I am here. His voice was a whisper, but it was authentic, and with those words a small weight lifted from his chest. That night, Leo didn't make grand declarations. He didn't vow to be a new man by sunrise. He made one small, deliberate commitment. Tomorrow I will attempt one thing. Just one. Not perfectly. Not confidently. Just honestly. Before sleep, he looked at the mirror one last time. The crack was still there, a permanent scar. But something had shifted. For the first time, he didn't hate the face looking back. He just acknowledged, this is me. He lay down, his problems still present, his fears still lurking. But a seed had been planted, not of confidence but of awareness. Chapter 3e. The first step from the edge. The next morning, Leo's eyes opened early. The light was pale, the city still quiet. For a few moments he just lay there, the sentence from last night echoing today. I will attempt one thing. But in the morning light it felt fragile, like a promise made in a dream. Immediately his mind began its counterattack. What if you freeze again? What if they see right through you? What if it's all the same? This is the pattern. The moment you decide to move, fear gets louder. Leo sat up. The room was unchanged. The broken mirror still held its place. He walked toward it slower this time. He stood, not rushing. He looked at his reflection. Messy hair, tired eyes, an unremarkable face. For a second, the old habit surfaced, you're still not good enough. But then he remembered. He hadn't promised to be good enough. He'd promised to try. So instead of the criticism, he offered a simple instruction: just try. Not be brave, not be perfect. Just that one word was enough to get him moving. He got ready. In the past, this was a drawn-out ordeal of indecision. Today, he chose a shirt, put it on, looked in the mirror once, and stopped. His brain tried to pull him back, change it. It's not right. People will notice. But Leo took a breath and said, it's fine. It's not perfect, but it's fine. That was a new concept. When he stepped outside, the world was the same. The rush of people, the hum of traffic, the indifferent city. But inside, he was different. He was carrying a plan, a small, terrifying plan. Just try once. His mind raced as he walked. What if the moment is too big? What if I freeze like before? He reached his office. A familiar landscape of desks and hushed conversations. And immediately, the old feeling of being an outsider crept in. That knot in his stomach. That voice whispering, you don't belong here. He sat at his desk trying to focus. His mind was waiting, scanning for the moment. And then it arrived. A colleague approached. Hey Leo, quick question. Can you help me understand this section of the brief? A simple request. But for Leo, it was the moment. His heart began its frantic rhythm. His mouth went dry, his hands trembled. Same fear. Same body. For a few seconds, he was silent. His mind screamed, don't, you'll mess up. Just say you're busy. This was the old road, the safe, well-worn path to silence. But then, another voice surfaced, not loud, but persistent. A memory of the cracked mirror, his promise. Tomorrow, I will try once. Here, in this split second, he had a choice. Life gives us these small, invisible moments that define us. The choice between the safety of silence and the risk of being real. Fear pulled him hard, but his commitment, though weak, held. He took a shallow breath. His voice came out, not strong but present. I think this part, it outlines the key changes from last week. So, compared to this week, his grammar wasn't perfect, his voice wavered. He paused, searching for the right word. But he didn't stop. He kept explaining a few sentences, stumbling slightly, but completing the thought. After a few seconds, his colleague nodded. Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks, Leo. That was it. No judgment, no laughter, just normal interaction. A feeling Leo had never truly experienced. He sat down, his heart still racing, but something was happening inside. Not euphoria, not sudden confidence. A quiet, unshakable relief. I did it, even though I wasn't perfect. That realization was a key turning a lock he didn't know he had. The rest of the day, Leo wasn't transformed. The fear was still there. But he didn't retreat completely. He had small interactions. A short sentence here, a question there. Each attempt was clumsy, but each was real. And with each attempt, something inside him grew, not stronger in a loud way, but more resilient. He was building the muscle of courage, not confidence. That evening, back home, he stood before the mirror again. The crack was still there, the same fractured image, but he didn't immediately scan for flaws. Instead, he thought about the day, the moment he spoke, the small attempts, and a new thought formed: maybe I don't have to fix everything. He paused, then added, maybe I just need to keep showing up. Confidence does not come before action. Confidence comes after action. That night, He fell asleep with a sliver of peace, a quietness he hadn't felt in years. The next morning, Leo woke again. The same room, the same cracked mirror, the same life. But there was a subtle shift inside. He didn't spring up with a surge of motivation. He felt normal, which is important, because real change isn't dramatic, it's quiet and cumulative. He walked to the mirror, looked at himself, and simply said, "Let's see what we can do today." No big speech, just a quiet intention. The morning went well. He had a few small exchanges at work. He felt a flicker of something. And that's when the danger came. The moment you feel a little progress, you start to expect things to get easier. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. Later that afternoon, Leo's manager called him over. "Leo, we have a client presentation in an hour. I'd like you to handle the project summary section." The words hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't a colleague asking a question. This was the big stage. More people. More pressure. The stakes were higher. His body reacted instantly. Heart racing, chest tight, mind flooding with static. The internal battle began. "This is too much. You're not ready. You'll make a fool of yourself. Find a way out." The old pattern surged back with full force, louder than before. Leo sat at his desk, unable to focus. He started visualizing the meeting, the faces looking at him, the silence, the inevitable mistake, the imagined humiliation. The image was so vivid it began to transform fear into a crushing doubt. Yesterday was luck. You can't do this. You're still the same person. This is how people lose their progress. Not because they can't improve, but because they stop believing they can. Leo stood up, walked to the restroom, and locked the door. He looked at himself in the mirror there. A different mirror, clear and unbroken. And the old Leo returned, the harsh critic. "You can't do this. You're going to fail. Just tell them you're sick." For a moment, he nearly gave in. This is what most people do. They take one step, face a bigger challenge, and retreat to what's familiar. Leo gripped the sink, his knuckles white. His hands were cold. He stared into his own eyes. In the silence, a different thought emerged. Not a roar, but a whisper. "If I run now, this is my life. Forever." The sentence was simple but devastating. He thought of the years of hiding, the pain of silence, the loneliness of the mask. And in that moment he saw clearly running wasn't protection. Running was the trap. Leo took a deep breath. He didn't feel confident. He didn't feel ready. He was still terrified. But he made a decision, not a comfortable one, a painful one. "I'll do it, even if I fail." That sentence is where growth begins. Not when you're ready, but when you act in the face of your unreadiness. The time came. He walked into the conference room. People were chatting, laptops open. He sat down, his hands cold, his heart pounding. Nothing had magically changed. Then his manager looked at him. "Leo, we're ready for you." The moment felt like slow motion. He stood, looked at the screen, then at the people. For a split second, his mind went blank. The same fear, the same silence. This was the exact precipice he'd fallen from before. But this time, something was different. He didn't wait for perfection. He didn't wait for confidence. He just began. This summary covers the main results from the last quarter. His voice was shaky, but it was there. He continued, pausing, searching for words, making a small grammatical slip. But he didn't stop, and an unexpected thing happened. People listened. They didn't laugh. They didn't check their watches. Some even nodded. And as he went on, his voice steadied. Not perfect, but steadier. When he finished, there was a beat of silence. Then a senior colleague said, "That was clear. Thanks, Leo." Just a few words. But for Leo, they were the sound of a cage door swinging open. Not because he was perfect, but because he had acted despite the fear. That evening, Leo walked home slowly. No rush, no overthinking. He realized something profound. Confidence isn't the prerequisite for action. It's the reward for it. All those years, he had been waiting for confidence to arrive. Now he understood you act first, and the confidence slowly follows. When he got home, he stood before the broken mirror. The crack was still there, but he saw something new in his reflection. Not perfection, not even success, just a quiet strength. He said softly, "I'm still imperfect." He paused. "But I'm not running from it anymore." Chapter 4: The Man Who Stopped Chasing a Ghost. Weeks passed. Leo's life didn't become a flawless dream. He didn't wake up one day a charismatic speaker. He didn't become fluent without hesitation. The fear didn't vanish. He still made mistakes. He still forgot words. His voice still shook sometimes. But the fundamental shift was this: he stopped running. Before, his life was a cycle of overthinking, fearing mistakes, staying silent, and then regretting it. Now, his life was a different rhythm. Try even when afraid. Speak even when unsure. Accept the stumble. Keep moving, not perfectly, but honestly. And as this became his new pattern, the world around him began to shift. At work, people started to notice him. Not because he was perfect, but because he was present. He asked questions. He shared ideas. He participated. Sometimes his points were awkward, but they were genuine. And something crucial happened. People respected him not for his flawlessness, but for his authenticity. One day, his manager called him in. "Leo, I'd like you to lead the next department presentation." The old Leo would have panicked, made excuses, avoided it. The new Leo paused. The fear was still there, a familiar presence. But it wasn't the driver anymore. He smiled slightly and said, "Okay, I'll give it a try. Not, I'll be perfect. Just I'll try." The day of the presentation came. Leo stood in front of a large group, more people than ever before. His heart was beating, his hands weren't steady. But a calm had settled over him. He understood something deep now. He didn't need to be perfect to stand there. He just needed to be real. He started speaking. This time, he wasn't trying to impress. He was just trying to communicate. And because of that, his words flowed more naturally. Not perfect, but powerful. He made a few mistakes. He corrected himself. And something beautiful happened. The audience connected with him. Not because he was flawless, but because he was human. That night, Leo came home. He stood in front of the same mirror, the one that started it all. He looked at his reflection. Still imperfect, still human, still real. But now he saw something else too: growth. Not in the surface of the glass, but deep within. For the first time, he smiled without judgment. He had finally unlocked the cage. The key wasn't becoming perfect. The key was accepting that he never needed to be. Now, I want you to listen closely. This isn't just Leo's story. It's your story, too. You are waiting. Waiting to speak until your words are flawless. Waiting to start until your fear disappears. Waiting to live until you feel ready. But that day will never come, because perfection isn't a destination. It's a mirage that keeps you stuck in the desert of inaction. The people who change their lives aren't the perfect ones. They are the people who speak with cracks in their voice, who try with tremors in their hands, who fail without quitting, who continue without excuses. Let me leave you with a truth you must carry with you: perfection is not the goal. Progress is. You don't need a flawless performance to begin. You don't need to be fearless to be brave. You don't need to fix everything before taking a step. You just need one thing: the courage to try imperfectly. So from this moment, stop waiting. Stop overthinking. Stop hiding. Speak, even if your voice wavers. Try, even if your hands shake. Start, even if you're not ready. Because your life will not transform when you finally become perfect. Your life will transform the moment you stop chasing it. Perfection is not the goal. Progress is. And remember this always: no one is perfect. And that imperfection is not your weakness. It's your permission to begin. This is your moment. Don't wait for it any longer. If this story spoke to you, Hit that like button to let us know you're on this journey with Winds of Thought. And if you're ready to stop chasing perfection, subscribe. Let's walk this path together.